look, it's your team.
Huh?
It's the squad.
Huh?
Alright, please time yourselves.
Yeah.
Timer.
Okay. Everyone ready?
Mm-hmm.
Bob?
Yep.
Cool. Gun possession is increasing with gender. Hegemonic masculinity invoke guns to enjoy traditional family values and individual freedom. This legitimizes certain practices and ideals that were marginalizing others. Common in 15, gun use relationship with masculinity has been increasing over the years. Virginia Tech, Trayvon Martin, Sandy Hook, the gun is a symbol of has become increasingly gender. Hegemonic masculinity creates the perception of gun ownership as a sign of authority and self-reliance, whether associated with power control and dominance. Gun use is endorsement expressing the desire to uphold the traditional family values and protect what is rightfully theirs. With the masculine becomes a family representation of what a man is and does. Certain gender practices and ideals are legitimized and venerated, while others are marginalized. The space to produce gender hierarchies in which material and descriptive practice of manhood in relation to gun use and the connection between gun ownership and the good family man constructs a heteronormative neoliberal colonialist masculine subject that valorizes the frontier set over past the common. In 15, heterosexuality is compulsory, sexuality is presumed to be naturally perceived to be necessary in order for males to fulfill the roles of men. Cultural norms separate from conservative interpretation of the Christian doctrine that maintains in regard to marriage and sexuality a reductionist gender order form which women often describe as having womanly qualities and men are described as tough, rational, aggressive, and strong. Women are situated as bodies are things to be owned and are need and if protected and are deficient or lacking if not partnered with the man. The underlying reason that men own guns because of the powerlessness they may feel due to the current socio-economic situations. The tenets of neoliberalism are fused with conservative Christianity and manufacture individualistic subjectivities and hold fast to the conviction that what one does in life, their social standing as well as what happens to them in the afterlife. The role of the gun for children has become a rite of passage, a connection to the past ancestors, a relationship with the land and a politics pioneer spirit of the relatives who settled the area. The glorification of the settled past functions is revealed that white was the underlying colonial violence and the impact. Neoliberalism rips apart communal bonds to maintain the illusions of structural inequalities that are individual problems. The impact is systemic victim blaming of poverty and violence. Smith 12 there is a link between neoliberalism and individualism and violence. Consider neoliberalism's insistence that we do not need society to are responsible for our well-being. The focus on the individual can lead to violence, weak social bonds, free a person to engage in deviancy. Neoliberalism's tendency to value the individual over society transport social bonds contributes to ego-driven crimes, the individualization, and drives a climate where social inequalities are converted into individual problems, and the frontier narrative justifies a violent imperial project steeped in racist rhetoric used to justify historical genocide and contemporary racism. Gone 15, gun ownership justifies a violent imperial project steeped in racist rhetoric used to justify the use to carry out the mass eradication of indigenous people of the United States. The USA is the frontier nation, the myth of poetic narrative of pioneers arriving to accumulate territory from the uncivilized populations and ultimately control the earth through the moral codes of honor and self-reliance. A point to gun control was unfair, not right, and being discrimination against good, hardworking Americans. The white male victimization are quite prevalent when white men, when men seek to justify the oppressive and marginal practices that they engage in. Even when asked to describe the thoughts on the history of gun use stated, well, the priest came here to help people share their way of life. So the guns they had were mainly for protection and touching. I know that not all Indians were dangerous, but you cannot say that some innocent Caucasian people were not attacked. There were tribes stealing and attacking other tribes. Pioneers were disrespecting their families of defending what they believed in. White settlements of defending property, carrying out manifestations, symbolizing Indian still permeates much of the cultural landscape. The process of othering reinforces structural white supremacy. The connotation of what it means being from the country versus from the city. Being from the city means it's often times loaded with racialized undertones. The food nature giving meaning to gun violence is keen to understanding how white supremacy discourse from the dominant local understandings of gun use. Ferber has researched the feelings that white men experience when encountering visible minorities, particularly black men. The increased inferior oppressive discourse underscore whiteness and how it is allowed to remain invisible while attacking other social identities from a position of privilege. White masculinity thus enjoys the luxury of being unnoticed and remains free from criticism because of ubiquity and sense of entitlement. Hyper masculinity and extreme individualism frames discussion in gun policy, allowing homicide and intimate partner violence and continue limiting our effort for reforms by making people feel alienated, disempowered, and dehumanized. Critical discussion is necessary. Esposito and Finley in 14, gun violence is a normative feature of American life. Reason 1,422 homicides in 2011. Over 30 people in the United States and the U.S. were murdered with a gun every day. By encouraging attitudes of behavior tendency related to individualism, hyper-masculinity, competition, self-gain, neoliberalism has promoted a sociopathic society by rewarding self-centered behavior. Neoliberalism breeds a society of alienated persons who see others as little more than obstacles. These conditions people become largely incapable of loving. When human beings are reduced to things they lose a basic connection and sense of caring that sustains human communities. Ignore the mainstream discussion of gun violence. How the violence has a lot to do with the sense of powerlessness that many people feel in a neoliberal market society. The incidence of gun violence might be a sense of reclaiming a sense of mastery. We feel fortunate enough to have a job to pay the most. Incidence of gun violence might be violent outbursts against a society that makes people feel insignificant and impotent. The majority of gun-related homicides in the U.S. involve individuals killing others. Over 78% of homicides involve relative friends or acquaintances of all females killed with firearms. Almost 2/3 were killed by their intimate partners. Thus, I advocate that the private ownership of handguns be banned in the United States. Ethione and Helen 91. What is needed for domestic disarmament? This is a policy practically all other Western democracies. Domestic disarmament entails the removal of arms from private hands and ultimately from much other police force. Once guns are hard to obtain, the level of violent crime will fall significantly. Americans who have grown up in a gun-permissive culture have a hard time recognizing the effectiveness of domestic disarmament. Persons are apprehended committing the offense. Domestic disarmament can be rapidly implemented. Guns are removed from private hands, and a handgun ban signifies a cultural shift away from a normalized view of gun ownership. Lawful at 2K. One crucial difference between European and American cultures is the presence of guns. Each culture is weighted because the role guns played in the creation. Curtailing the private possession of guns might shape the American culture, so it would be less fun, fewer guns, reshapes the cultural values, which lead to a high murder rate. The more than 80% of the gun homicides and 9% of gun robberies involve handguns. Criminals will not switch along because if handguns are available. We have a reason to involve to abolish handguns. Now, framing narrative frames and precedes ethics. There is no knowledge, experience, or ethics independent of the narrative from which it is abstracted. It is the narrative that gives it meaning. Fisher 84. The ground for determining meaning truth must be a narrative, context, history, culture, biography, and character. Neither the facts nor experience come to us and await the more principle to be applied. They need some sort of narrative which can bind the facts of the experience together to a coherent pattern and thus the narrative are objective worth principles and notions gain the full intelligibility, the meaning of life, and all require the recognition of the narrative structure. Any ethic, whether political or otherwise, involves narrative and gun cultural debate should be resolved by cultural value orientation, not by risk calculation. Objective procedures and criteria such as cost-benefit analysis and Kahan 3 no amount of economics can tell us what attitudes we should accept. Only a frank discussion of the cultural vision that underlie the risk perception can tell us. Instrumental arguments are the don't tell solution to cultural disputes. To moderate citizens see the rhetorical stage expressive zealots. The ones who are repulsed must come out from behind the cover of the consequentials and talk about the competing vision, the open debate about the social meanings of the law. The constructive respectful idiom for debating gun controls are tasks that require energy, and the first obligation of the judge as an academic should be to promote social responsibility in debating deconstructing gun culture, silencing of discussion. Juror 13, the tragic deaths of 26 people killed in Sandy Hook included 20 young children and 6 educators. The United States is to prevent that slide into a deeply violent and anti-democratic state. It will be required fundamentally to rethink the role teachers as engaged citizens and public intellectuals and the relationship between teaching and social responsibility. Right-wing fundamentalists are waging a war against those public spheres that provide a vocabulary for connecting values and institute for social responsibility. Neoliberalism uses education militarization in the service of war, power, and violence. And the pervasiveness of our gun commercial culture forces us to debate vanilla gun control measures. That's the only hill in 91 Hoffman's DC gang warfare, not white and killings in New York. Because we seem to be significant who increase on the people who are arming themselves in favor of handing drug dealers or shooting them. The vanilla measures have not been acted because the opposition opposed limitations.
You read everything, right?
Yeah, I just read it in a different order.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
What is a narrative?
Sure. The Fisher evidence contextualizes what a narrative indicates. It includes, it's a context. So knowledge does not come to us in a way that can be readily applied. Rather, we have to take the given context in which that knowledge is produced. It gives the example of how things like history, culture, biography, character, things that are important.
What is the narrative that the 1AZ takes into account?
The affirmative takes into account the narrative of gun violence that is prevalent throughout the United States. Our argument is that...
so I control F'd the word handguns in the app, and you read precisely two times in your cards it says handguns.
Okay.
What does the AF solve if your historical narrative is obviously not about handguns?
Sure, our argument is that a handgun ban signifies an orientation towards gun violence that recognizes that gun violence is the product of this hegemonic masculinity. That
so the 1AC is we say gun violence is bad, so vote F?
No, the argument is that the affirmative is an orientation towards gun violence.
Cool.
Our argument is that guns
do you have to win solvency?
Do I have to, what do you mean by solvency?
In the 1AR, are you going to get up and say, none of the, solvency turns of the 1NC matter because we are a stance against gun violence? But
the 1AR would probably make claims as to why the cultural effects of the plan are more important than the solvency claims, so that would function as a weighing. Obviously, I cannot just get up in the 1AR and dealing all of your offense unless it just does not apply to our AF.
Reasonable. You defend whole res. Will you defend that the AF is passed by the USFG?
The USFG?
Yeah.
Sure.
Will you defend that it goes through Congress?
What do you mean goes through Congress?
Is passed through Congress. In other words, it's a congressional vote as opposed to an executive order or something else.
Sure.
All right, cool. I want to talk about the Gauman evidence. In
Which
the
one?
card, one sec.
Okay.
The second Gauman evidence, he indicates that we have assigned a narrative to gun violence. Why does that mean that it is reverse causal? That's the Smith evidence. Is it a Smith evidence?
I'm a little confused as to what your question is asking. The Gauman evidence contextualizes that gun ownership has been constructed in a way in which it valorizes this idea of the good family man. The argument that the AF makes is that guns are a manifestation
All right, sorry. In the
of
third
this
Gauman evidence,
necessity
it says...
Which piece of Gauman evidence?
The third one.
Got it.
The argument says almost verbatim that the fluid nature of giving meaning to gun violence is key in understanding how white supremacist discourse is. It seems like the AF has seen gun violence and assigned something to it. What is intrinsically bad about it?
Sure. The argument is that in the past, white supremacist discourse has been able to paper over violence of guns that have affected other groups of people. The evidence gives the example of how in the past there were attempts to whitewash or to sanitize that violence committed against Native Americans using guns.
No problem. I'll email.
What's the order?
3 off case.
Got it. Here's the stand.
Thank you. Send.
Cool.
What's the fish sticker?
What?
What's the fish sticker with?
Just a bunch of people on our team have table totes, and they all look the same.
So
I
just gotta differentiate.
Yeah.
That's reasonable. Got it?
Yep.
Good?
Yes.
First off is politics. CGS will pass now. It has momentum, but we need Republicans on board. Stewart 3-2. Congress has been debating the president's format to crash out 2015's large bipartisan coalition sponsored the measure 20 different organizations lined up both sides. Had any George Sutter face. We're getting people to understand its needs of momentum. A group of conservative senators have lined up to oppose it, specifically sending this reform, sending reform efforts. And the app is political suicide for Democrats. There's a strong distinction between regulations to ban Sure 15. Politicians avoid handguns because their position doesn't fit into the frame of is that responsible governors for regulation. Plenty of Americans keep the handguns thinking will protect politicians. They're all loath to have to get the government take away their guns. Political is impossible to go. Republican Congress wouldn't even pass background checks. Was the table provisions like universal background check, illegal drug traffickers, and keeping guns out of the hands of the business stalkers. Handguns are not on the cards. And criminal justice reform solves mass incarceration, overcriminalization. It's central to human rights issues globally. Obviously, the link turns to the one obviously solves the 1AC because it's a question of overcriminalization. It's exactly the same kind of narrative that we criminalize certain people. Cox 15, the impact of mass incarceration communities of color, particularly sacring the resident driver racial quality, criminal justice reform, essential still right to U.S. this century of our partisan peace legislation committee of the recovery impact of incarceration, overcriminalization, takes a number of steps towards harsh penalties. And next off. The 1AC equates gun ownership with violence and patriarchy, ignoring the historical discipline created from self-defense, self-defense against white race. Curran Keller 15, the erasure of Williams, the part of the inability where your such discipline comes black organization after the historical self-reference went through this, framing the black organization ignores the actual function of these aspects of where black politicians, black political theories were destined politics due to the fear they caused by most of black male armed resistance, equating black feminists quitting the use of gun with patriarchy, supporting historical discrimination, makes all black militants protect themselves equivalent to their to imitate white patriarchy. Turns their narrative arguments. They've excluded entire historical discipline and only reify white Eurocentric thought. Also, your third dominant evidence is very specific that you just code that kind of white Eurocentricness onto gun violence. It has no intrinsic meaning. We say it is a good thing. It has been historically has been used for good things. And liberation requires bloodshed. Try or keep dying to move away from the current system of black death that only a radical stance can work. Curran Keller 15. Let's affect self-defense. All part of political press for people who require mass organization. Press cannot afford to change the idea. Our people but through change time we give the exact liberation of that lawsuit. We must not let us let our oppressors feel the weight of the death. Liberation requires bloodshed. The Williams movement was not worth of violence for the sake of violence and revolution causing goal. Military is capable of activating the pursuit of justice for law, blacks and demanding oppression. And the alternative is to reject the 1AC framing of guns as inherently patriarchal by engaging in black self-defense. The possibility of multiple liberation strategies is key. Curran Keller 15. Robert Williams must limited liberal thought office challenge Perkins left how his activism shows what a black male counter assassinated by the FBI. The chair of multiple threats against his life producing India racist Williams aims to inspire the blacks to complement the multiple speed resistant to fashion audio command this to one or morally determined course they can the black Americans find themselves the mercy of the police demand all but does never arm themselves. Alt solves case inclusion of black historical disciplines historical narratives of guns based on hegemonic masculinity creates culture of the way frontiers by randomly where the black people recognizes multiplicity of self-defense avoids monolithic narratives of guns, also a multiplicity of self-defense strategies that checks back the impact of the case that's apparent to the proven Curran Keller 15 the black guards sought to protect her in unarmed attack. We shot it out with the Klan. They stopped raiding our community. They just made 2 black and males to have a social justice rooted in public identity. Next off.
I didn't start my timer. Can you zero?
Black life is characterized by political death instead of taking a reactive stance on oriented politics or wish to embrace nothingness, a complete disorder that is blackness, which is key to social life. Mode 13. Blackness is pride, no talk to black lives, you're social, political political death, is burial ground of the subject, the burial ground is called the world, conceive it as pathogenic blackness, bears the potential in the world, slavery is raised, radical exclusion from the political order, the slavery is political death, not social death, such as rational, the Christian sociality, and given in comedy. I agree with that for pessimistic understanding blackness as a serious civil society, unmanageable social death is the field from the political for which blackness is relegated socially and differentiated massively social and gun control leads to overpolicing, criminalization, disenfranchisement. Gorbich 15 gun control means creating new crimes, creating new reason police specific people crimes, creating more pervasive militarized police full class project gun control efforts play an important role. The invasion is unnecessary for feature of criminalization of gun possession, policing guns like policing crimes must be selected enforced based on prejudice. Shows steep bias. The gun possession can be used to control sentences tackling extra criminal charges. Gun charges are also part of the excessive racially unequal overcharging practices that are not only contribute to rise incarceration rates and any call call for legal relief is the production of slave B, demand for equality when the slave attempts depends on the master partly by B. A move slavery and segregation is told to our freedom, the move slavery practice of the story. For practice is told in the rule of law, the slave practice of what it's about, for the master's own of his own free will, the slave comes to possible practice of freedom, what is praised. For the alt is to embrace nothingness about celebrating culture, community, starting point for resistance instead of falsely placing faith in the legal system or in the government. Milton 13, the after passing compels one to move, passing 100 impulse to form the interest of a negation and to consider what is nothing, the future a field of unknown parallel options against what until terms of proposal are aimed in the face of black life is celebration, the condition of byproducts which animates black vibration, which are the absolute opportunity and animation of black vibration, which are underground, the Afro-pessimism and Afro and black optimism are one another. Case. First on masculinity, armed self-defense is a key tool for women to uproot patriarchy. Only radical stance recognizes women as truly equal. Charles 11 women must have a full range of defense tools. Armed could be could change rape culture and patriarchy. Armed self-defense while women by men refuse to see women as human. Armed self-defense about police intervention, which part of them would not solve a large number of women refusing to push any further than the myth of masochistic female. And gun rights are a component of autonomy which challenge patriarchy. Charles 11 women have important choices: higher education, vocation, how to vote, choices necessary freedom. From patriarchy, there's no race of government to resist the self-defense choices are available. Women can be trusted to make good decisions for themselves. The most difficult choices are maybe the most important. Women in Christ, guns line, without crucial private choices. And gun regulations are do nothing to protect women and emasculate violence. Silco 03 by Ken Lethal. Women ensure the fantasy where sitting ducks. Women are taught to depend upon this protection. More police will not protect women. Policemen are rapists now. Won't look at the rape statistics. It is clear the government fails to protect women. U.S. prison population becoming larger than the world body. Women constructed more teacher and Boston. Ever before women must learn to take action individually apart from the police courts. Escape the Carlson evidence. Next, militarism. A national gun ban would create a massive increase in government militarization and right-wing civil war. Meta 15. Federal government required the national police action involving thousands of lawmen. Someone will have to take those guns out of American and Australian-style gun control would require government force. Massive scale guns. Gun confiscation would administer force from only militarized police would enforce Australian-style gun scheme in the U.S. Outweighs A, maintains militarism, makes it one-sided. Now only large group of government has the power to enforce their will on minorities, martial B, government pressure is harder to resolve, reverse because it feeds off itself by making opposing movements weaker and weaker, and so it outweighs the reversibility. Skip the drill evidence. Solvency. Your solvency author concedes that bans don't solve Etzioni and Helen 91. Some have to stress the voting sale of vanilla pill measures not been active because opposition opposed limitation to thousands of killed. Each will not be safe because our first person thousands killed to be imposed to use guns by family members. The criminals will be given the ease which will obtain false documents will continue to buy about as many guns as they did before.
Perfect. Can you delete what you did not read?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, you're scrolling backwards.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Sorry. I've always liked it like that. Alright. Perfect. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Test the chaos.
Conde.
Both?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Alright. First question, the first critique. Your evidence indicates that the alt solves the case because it recognizes a multiplicity of self-defense strategies.
Yeah.
Why does the AF foreclose the possibility of recognizing resistance strategies?
It's a distinction between resistance strategies and self-defense strategies. We say that
What's the distinction?
guns have been historically useful for self-defense. You say, no, guns are always super bad and we should ban them.
Okay, what's the impact of that? Why do we care?
There's a couple. The first is it means that your historical narrative is bad. You say narratives are important. We say the U.S. is oppressive. The next impact is it forecloses ability for self-defense. The second? Yeah, Curry and Keller evidence indicates that bloodshed is often required in order to achieve liberation, which would necessarily mean that banning guns would be bad.
Okay. The second critique, what does it mean to embrace nothingness? What does the alt do?
We scrap the USFG and instead embrace a politics of black, I guess belief would be the right word. We say belief would be the right word. We say that instead of the narrative of self-hatred and
how does belief
political
solve for
exclusion,
policing in the status quo?
our argument is that the alt is a radical stance against this. You say narratives are important. We are a better radical stance than you are.
Why? That seems to jump a pretty big gap.
Why? We say that our radical stance against the political death and imposed self-hatred of the world is one that solves. The modern evidence of the alternative indicates that this allows the opening up of new resistance strategies. In other words, when we embrace this culture, this community, it allows further down the road. There are empirical examples of this. In other words, when...
An empirical example is one card of, one sentence of how some people killed a Klan member. How is this an example?
Are you talking about the Curry and Keller evidence or the
that was the
Moten
wrong
thing?
one.
Yeah, so the empirical examples of the Moten alt are things like slave songs where they use community and culture in order to get themselves off of plantations. Another one would be civil rights movements. They sang songs in order to keep morale high, spirits together.
All right,
other things like this.
Next question. What reforms are going to be passed in this bill that is uniquely key in the disadvantage?
Yeah, so the sentencing, and I don't remember the official title, the Sentencing and Corrections Thing Reform, it lowers mandatory minimums, changes drug and gun incarceration laws, as well as a couple of others. It would release a number of people, thousands of people who are in prison now for minor nonviolent charges.
Got it. Yeah.
I assume there are other clauses of long bill has been in contention for a while, but those are the big ones.
If you want.
51.
Yeah. Case starting with an overview from the line by line, then the order they were in,
You said case starting on, what do you mean by the line by line?
Your terms.
Cool. Read anything new?
Yeah. It's already set. Okay. Got it? Bob, good.
Yep.
Okay. Impact calc was dropped. Neoliberalism outweighs the cost of victim of structural violence and poverty, which is the root cause of all other impacts. The root cause of this is a culture of hegemonic masculinity, which is propped up by guns. This culture fetishizes violence and promotes aggression as a gendered ideal, which directly indicts their self-defense arguments. Voting affirmative is a breakaway from the American narrative of family values, domination, and masculine protection. As a judge, voting affirmative allows for us to reorient our value system, protect the culture of hegemonic masculinity. The consequences of this are less important than the value reorientations around that. Sufficient evidence. This also means that they cannot solve for the keys to self-defense. Their notion of self-defense still reinforces the idea that the world is a target and that we need to defend ourselves from other people. Now, the cultural effect of planning occurs independently of the empirical issues. Removing guns from American society reduces the tendency to view the world as a target, disrupting the narrative of guns, expression of family values and pioneers and their solvency. Evidence does not apply. We read this piece of evidence as a 1AC in the 1AC, not as a backup for a solvency, but rather arguments about vanilla pale measures such as regulations do not address the root cause of the problem. As you know, to advocate for domestic disarmament, which inevitably results in spillover, in which we remove the ownership of guns from private individuals, which just spillover, in which the police are eventually disarmed, which means that yes, we do have solvency. They have misread our evidence. Now the masculinity turns. The framing issue here is that we still address the problems that their evidence indicates. We reject the idea that women are inherently weak and need guns in order to protect themselves. Our argument is that guns in the status quo have a symbolic value that indicate that women need to be protected by the masculine individuals, which takes that they're both pieces of Charles Evans because guns are not necessary. They say government regulations do nothing. They have conceded that our orientation towards guns is something that is good, which means that their evidence does not apply. Now their militarism arguments do not apply. They have conceded our solvency advocated, which indicates that we result in the demilitarization of the police, which means that we do not cause an expansion of militarism. Now, the disadvantage, the impact is not unique to warrants. The first is that their war of evidence indicates that the ideas of racism are inherently in the status quo, which means that legalistic reforms do nothing to solve. The second is that their faraway evidence indicates that legal solutions to problems in the status quo inevitably fail, which means that they cannot win how the bill passes is able to solve. Now, the AFIS plot board that sponsored 13 gun support for gun control politically beneficial candidates will see little harm from supporting either party. Again, supporters candidates also saw a 14% loss in supporters for not supporting the checks. Also, the dissent is not intrinsic. A logical policymaker would pass both the plan and criminal justice system reform, which means that the dissent is not intrinsic. Now, Supreme Court nominee Thompson dissent will be the most contentious thing between Obama and GOP ever. Schenker 5 debates over the future of the nation's highest court will heat up when Obama chooses the nominee to replace Scalia. Reid said the president will send lawmakers to the nominee within a week, so the battle for the nominee will be contentious within hours of Scalia's death last month. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell pledged not to confirm a new justice before the next president takes office. Now, the self-defense critique disadvantage to the alternative. Surveillance destroys black insurgency, which means that the alternative feels the ultimately brings more attention and violence to the doorstep of black communities. McAdams 10 for FBI's use of electronic surveillance and obtained information on the escalating militants of certain insurgent leaders. Many can be criticized for speaking loud and carrying a small stakes. The Panthers were subjected to official control efforts, infiltration, harassment through arrest, confrontation with law enforcement personnel, countless instances of official violence, harassment, and intimidation directly directed at the organization leadership. This means that the alternative cannot solve. They bring more attention to these communities and force people to see African Americans and people of color as a threat, which means that it results in increased militarization. Couple solvency deficit to the alternative. The first is that it allows police officers to determine who is black or white, which means that they'll always blur the line by claiming that some people are not really black. It also kill a nationwide shift in culture. Our argument is that the banning of guns resulted in us no longer needing to view the world as a threat. Now, their violent revolution arguments do not apply. It was not the fourth behind the civil rights, which means that nonviolence is more effective. Ever 10, the Deacons had no impact on civil rights. The group did not form until after Brown versus Ward. Little Rock City and Freedom Riders marched on Washington, the 24th Amendment, and the Civil Rights Act. It is difficult to find historians who view the armed group as the engine behind the civil rights, which means that they mark the card of civil rights, which means that they cannot access any solvency. Now, permutation do the alternative. Embrace the fact that guns have been used in the past, but our argument is that guns are no longer necessary because all of our office would indict this. Now, the final case. There is no way to defeat. They have conceded that we do not need abrasive policing. Our solvency advocate indicates that the police are demilitarized itself, which justifies permutation. To both embrace the institutional analysis of the alternative and the alternative embodied with the political process of the affirmative. They do nothing which is worth for because it does nothing to address the problems within the status quo, which means that cases net benefit.
Before we start, could you delete everything you want?
Starting McAdams.
Yeah.
10.
Mm-hmm.
Dudes.
Hey, bombs.
Gentlemen debates.
Nope.
4K.
A third of the pool conflicts me. A third of the pool would not affect me.
It's a good setup.
All right. You made two arguments on the second critique. They were no link because you've already answered the link to the Gorovich evidence, and the permutation. What was it?
What?
What was the permutation?
Permutation do both combine the institutional analysis of the alternative with the apolitical process.
All right.
Doing nothing can solve the violence that exists within the status quo.
Cool. Let's talk about the Stefan's case. You answered Gorovich here. What was the argument you made?
Sure. It was an extension of the solvency advocate, which indicates that athletes is spillover. Disarming the police, disarming the private individuals indicates that there's no longer a need to have guns as a control mechanism, which means that eventually leads to spillover in which the police are demilitarized. It's empirically proven in other countries where the police don't own guns.
What other countries?
Britain, China.
They don't have any guns there. Why is the AF just banning one kind mean that the place demilitarizes?
Well, it indicates a cultural distinction between the cultures of the countries I mentioned before and the United States. Our argument is that inherently the United States is a gun-permissive culture, which means that the affirmative is a step in the right direction in which it leads to spillover. So we no longer see guns as being a necessity.
What was the answer to the meta evidence?
Oh yeah, it indicates that your argument is that the way in which it would increase militarization is that it would result in a police crackdown. Our argument is that the affirmative represents a shift away from that view of the government.
Cool.
Cool.
Or like email or whatever. Actually, that's fine. Don't think really anything now.
Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thought I was, but.
Alright, no worries.
The order will be an overview that you can flow next to like the overview at the top of the 1AR, then case, then the second critique.
Case extensions, case line by line, second critique.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's pull up the right doc here. Cool.
The first argument at the top of the 1AR is that neoliberals outweighs, but you will not get excellence because you will not win. The neoliberals of solvency. The 1AC means that you cannot just go for like we are a good shift away unless you win actual solvency. The 1AC, the alternative that I'm going for is the Moden critique alternative. He would also justify a shift away from neoliberals. It means it's not unique. You have to win concrete solvency as to how your policy shifts away from neoliberals. Otherwise, you are just Kris Kaya in the debate round saying I don't like militarism. Well, neither do I. This is not a unique advantage to voting affirmative. Your next argument is that you are an orientation away from militarism. However, you are an orientation also towards the state. So even if it is true that you orient yourself away from the bad things associated with guns, the alternative would also alternative voting critique would also say that. But we also say the state is good, which means we are critiquing your orientation towards the state. It means you cannot just win your orientation against guns and still win the debate.
Next on like the line by line, start on like the Charles stuff.
Your argument is that you address the problems at the first place, that you say that women are equal, and that is a good stance. However, you are not winning that your policy will actually be good for women. Extend the first Charles evidence that the armed self-defense is key to uproot patriarchy. In other words, that your radical stance may be you saying that I don't like sexism. However, it is not something that is actually tangibly useful. We say that guns are uniquely key in order to actually shift that narrative to the real world, which means that you take away that ability for people outside of this debate round to actually make that shift. Means that your orientation is uniquely bad. Next, we will go for the second Charles evidence that guns rights are a component of autonomy. This is another orientation that we say that we should orient ourselves towards our autonomous decisions or the ability to control our own ourselves or our lives. Guns uniquely allow women to do this because they allow an ability of force able to match the militaristic family man that you have criticized. However, your policy takes that ability away. It means that your orientation is to that which suppresses the narratives against patriarchy. It means it's uniquely bad. Next, we'll go for the conceded Silko evidence that the state is the worst actor to do this with. You say we orient ourselves away from politics. However, you orient yourself towards the state, which is always uniquely bad because government regulations do not protect women. We have the highest prison population on the planet, but still a huge amount of rape and domestic violence because the state just aggressively does not give a shit whether men are abusive to their spouses or their significant others or even any kind of other dating relationship. It means there's absolutely no solvency for the 1AC because the state will never do what you want it to. The only thing you could possibly go for in your next speech is that no, we are a shift away. However, the alternative is still that. It means you can all win there. Next, we'll go for the meta evidence. Your only argument to the meta-evidence that we are a shift away from militarism. However, you conceded the government will just over-militarize when you pass your app. It means that even if you think militarism is bad, the tangible impacts of your app is not a shift away from militarism, but a shift towards militarism. It means because we need to confiscate guns in order to get them out of the homes. And you've also conceded the weighing analysis was done on anything. So extend the 8 point that militarism becomes one-sided because people no longer have the ability to fight back against the government. They are just a one-sided militarism where the government is shooting down at us without anything for us to shoot back. Extend the B point that government oppression is irreversible because it grows on itself. Each time the government gets more power, we get less. It means we are in a worse position.
All right, we'll go to the critique. We'll kick the Curry K alternative. We'll concede that the plan is popular on the dissent. You have not conceded those things.
There are precisely 3 arguments that answer the critique. The first is the spillover argument on Gorovitch. The A point is that all of these state bad warrants are reasons why there would not be some kind of spillover where the police would be like, oh yes, let's start demilitarizing. The B point here is that you do not ban all guns, you only ban these small ones, which means the police officers who go out every single day are still just as afraid of assault rifles in the street. Just because every dude doesn't have a handgun doesn't mean they're going to suddenly start demilitarizing. You give examples and cross-sects of other countries that have done this, but England has 0 guns whatsoever, not just not not handguns means that obviously does not apply. Next, you have conceded the link in the Farley evidence that the state is always bad, that any call for the relief from the state is just the perfection of slavery, because you make the slave reliant on the state to do everything for it, means that it is uniquely harmful. This conceded link to the critique means it takes out the permutation do both, because we say any amount of state action is uniquely bad because of the warrant that was just made. It means that the permutation still links to the critique, but you've also conceded all of the unique claims in the Moten evidence. The first is political death, that the state will always exclude the black body. The warrant is twofold. The first is empiric, that blacks are never given the opportunity to engage in politics. They're disenfranchised as well as harmed in the everyday. They're criminalized and over incarcerated. You're going to go for, we have a black president, but obviously that does not disprove the uniqueness claim. It is just a singular example. The next unique claim is the same Moten evidence is the self-hatred claim that blacks now have their ontology that is contingent on white ontology. In other words, what the white man defines as ontology or as the way of being, the black man just has to follow along. It means that these are all disadds to working within the state that the 1AC does. It means that these are still links to the critique that you've conceded, which also takes up the permutation. Extending Moten evidence, your argument is that we need a tangible solution as opposed to, say, a cultural shift. The issue is that we provide a tangible solution. The empirical examples of when we embrace culture are the civil rights movement or slave rats as well as slave songs. Haiti was an embrace of culture. All of these are empirical examples that the alternative does. We also do not say that guns are bad, which means that we also do not say that guns are bad or that guns are good, which means that we are the same orientation shift away. We just do it without the state, which is uniquely bad. This is not necessarily a floating pick. This is just the way in which we contextualize our orientation towards guns. Means this is how it goes. You are losing the tangible impacts of the entirety of the AC. Our orientation is also against guns. We are winning clear solvency. All of the critique links are disadd to the permutation, as well as like the sub-one case.
All right, I had like 52 seconds left or something around there. That's fine too.
Yeah.
Cool. The case, then the critique.
Yep.
Okay. Is everyone ready?
Yep.
Your only answer to what our impact talk is a non-unique argument. If we win, that there is unique for our impacts, that means that you vote affirmative, because all of our offense outweighs a lot of their responses were extended through ink, which means that they cannot go for a lot of their turns. Charles' turns do not apply. They've conceded that we are able to solve for the notions of patriarchy because ingrained in the status quo ideas of hegemonic masculinity is the idea that women are only secure when men are able to protect over them with guns, which means that our orientation towards guns is something that is good because it rejects the notion that women are docile things that need to be protected over. They say that we suppress narratives. No, we do not. Our argument is that we address the root cause of these notions, which we have isolated as hegemonic masculinity, which is uniquely here. They say that this heat does nothing to solve our argument, is that our argument contextualizes that the problems of the status quo are due to our current paradigm, which means that even if the winning the state action is key, is relevant, especially when they've conceded that our orientation towards guns is something that is good. That is our figure evidence, which indicates that the consequences of the round is less important than the value reorientation of the round. The symbolic value of voting affirmative is breaking away from the American narrative of family values, domination, masculine protection, which means that as a judge, voting affirmative means reorienting the value system, rejecting rejecting the culture of hegemonic masculinity, which we say is uniquely key there, which we say is uniquely in introspective social arguments. They say that the government will over-militarize. This was extended to the extension of self-the advocate is pretty good on this question. It indicates that there's a demilitarization of the police because guns are no longer seen as being necessary to dominate over certain groups of people, which means that it was a spillover effect, which was conceded coming out of the 1NC, and the children should not be able to get new responses because the implication was this was clear coming out of the 1NC. As an underview, we have definitely one that the AF is able to solve for the issues of neoliberalism. Now on the K, now the framing on the K, which I will get to later, will be that the alternative is not mutually exclusive with the affirmative, which means that permutation to both should resolve all the residual links. Now the critique proper, they have conceded a solve suggested the alternative that they cannot solve the ongoing violence that exists within the status quo. Our evidence indicates, as per Solti advocate, evidence indicates that the political process is unique because the government's stance towards guns is something that is good, i.e. it results in a cultural shift in which state and violence becomes impossible, i.e. there is no longer the necessity to dominate over other groups of people, which means that our defense of the state is something good. They cannot go for their generic forwardly evidence because they have not applied it to the specificities of the affirmative. Even if legal action is bad on balance, they have not proven why the affirmative itself is a bad idea, which their Govich argument is the only thing they have going for them. They have conceded permutation to both, which resolves the residual link. See, institutional analysis of the affirmative is uniquely key, i.e. we can embrace forms of black empowerment, but our argument is that the political process is uniquely key. If we win knowing on Govich, we win the debate because they have not proven why the affirmative is necessarily a bad idea. Our argument is that there is no racist enforcement in the world of the affirmative because no longer are people seen as viewing threats. The internal warrant of their Govich argument is that black people are seen as inherently dangerous, but if we remove that threat, then there is no longer the need for that. The issues of the round is pretty simple. Our legal solution is something that is good. They have not disproven the AF and isolated a disadvantage to the AF. Even if you buy that argument, our institutional analysis, i.e. recognize that the legal system is messed up in the first place, is able to solve because permutation to both is negative state action, which means that we reduce the power of the state and state-sanctioned violence. Your round of debate.
Better step up.
voting neg. The 2 and R characterizes alternative basically as a pick, and then says, but it's not a pick. The 2 and R says that the neg is also a value orientation away from neoliberalism, hegemonic masculinity, gun culture, etc. All of these things that are supposed to be the advantage to the AF, but says that we can do that, all of that orientation, whatever that means, without reliance on the state. I end up thinking that he wins the Gorovich evidence, and so I buy the 2AR framing that's like, well, if we're going to have a state involvement, good, bad debate, you should be more specific. But I think you don't get to Gorovich with enough time. You just say there won't be racist enforcement of gun bans because once the threat of violence has been removed, then police will no longer have a reason to be racist. The 2 and R says, no, police are afraid because they're racist, and it doesn't matter whether they think people have handguns or any other type of gun. They will not demilitarize, and your England example does not apply because England has 0 guns is the explanation. So I end up thinking he wins specificity. I think he also extends a bunch of links out of the Moten evidence that aren't great or explained very well. That's the number 1 kind of, well, he says political death argument. Second is the self-hatred argument. Third one is empirical examples from the civil rights movement about how state action has not been productive. So I think he wins essentially a disad to the part of the AF that he's picking out of. And so I think that will outweigh any benefits to the political process. The perm that you go for, and admittedly in the 2AR, you say, well, the benefit to the perm will be embracing a political process or doing the analysis, but I don't think that you've ever read a argument for why the state is good in the context of gun bans, or why learning about the state is good, so that why the perm would have a net benefit. I mean, I just don't think there's a piece of evidence or anything really concretely in the 1AR or 2AR on this debate at all. You really undercover this K in the 1AR, and I think there might be other parts of the debate that help you, but you need to point out what those are and do that work, rather than just saying things like, oh, this was in my solvency, this was, the 1AC defended the state. If I, send my solvency spillover arguments, that's supposed to be about state good. I just don't get it. So I think it really hurts you in the 2AR and 1AR to a lesser extent when you go for this Fisher framing. It's like the consequences are less important than the value orientation, because that's explicitly what he's saying the alternative does. At the top of the 2 and R even, he says, you're not going to win any of this overview stuff because the Moten chaos also justifies a shift away from neoliberalism and masculinity. I also take that orientation. And that's like the thrust of all of his case answers. That Kris, you saying this is not a unique reason to vote AF. I can say those things too, and we can still vote nay. The 5th argument. Well, so I said the Moten, there are 3 things extended in Moten. There's the 4th thing is Gorovich. So the 5th thing is the Silko evidence on cases specific to how government regulations have failed to protect women in prison and in cases of domestic violence. I think that's a pretty specific argument. Kris, your solvency explanation is just really generic. You're like, well, it's not necessary to dominate over certain groups of people in the world of the AF. I don't think that's enough to, I think the neg is being more specific on the link level of this debate. That's the gist of it. Even if I don't conceive, so I said that the alternative is essentially a pick. I mean, I don't think it matters whether I conceive of it as literally doing the part of the AF or just solving those parts of the AF, saying that the alternative would lead to rejection of these things. I don't think it's really clear, but Kris, you gotta ask him in cross-ex, and in the 1AR you gotta say no explanation of the alternative, the alt is super vague. You do say the alt is do nothing, but then there never becomes any more debate about what the alternative is, so you let him spin it out of control in the 2 and R to basically solve everything, which is not really fair, but classic case strategy. Do y'all have any specific questions?
Do you think that going for the Charles evidence in the NR was useful?
No, I thought your explanation of it was pretty bad.
Right.
It sounded like you were sending a course guard card. You were like, autonomy is key to orient ourselves toward our decisions and have control over our lives. And I'm like, what's the impact of that in this debate? I don't know.
Do you think the first trial's evidence that's like armed self-defense challenges that kind of narrative was more clearly articulated?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that was the second piece of evidence. The
Yeah.
first one, yeah, I thought the first one was better, but I also don't have you responding to this argument line by line that the idea that women need guns for self-defense is just, it treats them or views them as docile, as like they need this extra thing to protect themselves because they're weak and unsafe, and I don't have a line by line response to that in the 2NR.
Do you think there was a winning 2AR?
There's got to be. I didn't think a whole lot about this. I think you have to say what is unique about the AF, about state action, and to get to weigh that against the alternatives. So you need to say, you need to make a floating pick's bad argument, and then say, look, if you think it's a floating pick, then you should reject the argument. This was new in the 2NR. So make a short theory argument, like 15 seconds. Then say, even if it's legitimate, it certainly doesn't solve the AF, because here is my solvency mechanism. That's not just like me saying things as a value orientation. It's very specific to gun bans. Please extend and tell me what evidence out of the AF you are expecting to compare against all solvency, because as it is, you're like, look, our solvency answered this, our AF solvency was really good. I'm not going to go through the whole AF and like look for solvency cards that supposedly answer this. So yeah, I do think you can win. You can say you win a big chunk of your advantage, and that is a disadd to the alternative, which doesn't really do anything, wasn't really explained in the 2NR. And I think that's where the debate comes down to. And so yeah, I think you look at his extensions of Moten and be like, Bob, call the Moten one evidence. It was not nearly as well explained in the 1NC as the extension of it in the 2NR. So his state bad arguments are bad. They're generic. If I beat Gorovich and win the AF, solvency is key, outweighs all, then yeah, I think that's a winning 2AR.
Yep.
Alright, good luck, y'all.
Do you disclose speaks?
It was a 29 to